Why would I make them so uncomfortable?
It probably has to do with your reputation. They feel your methods, your theories are...
Spooky? Do you think I'm spooky?
His face was so blank and expressionless. He didn't even seem human.
I'm not turning my back on anyone!
Have you ever found a metal implant in your body? Have you checked everywhere?
Mulder, you have to understand!
Put it down!
You put it down first!
Scully!
Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome to a non-exclusive episode of Fox Mulder is a Maniac.
Mm-hmm. It's super special, you guys.
It is because, guys, we have a special guest with us today.
We do.
Yeah. Why don't you say hello?
Oh, that special guest is me. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I guess I should tell them who I am. It's everyone's favorite person, Valerie Tosi.
Welcome.
Hey.
Also, I'm one of the hosts, David Bell.
I'm the other host, Tom Ryman.
We're doing it all sorts of weird order here today. Because why not? Because guys, okay. So for anybody who isn't aware of the show, we should probably explain what we're doing here because it's a free episode. Is me and Tom has been we've been going through the X-Files in chronological order to determine just how I don't know, crazy Mulder is, because it turns out, and I don't know if you've noticed this, he's very crazy.
Yeah, he's pretty nutty. That Agent Mulder.
I even said last night, I was like, the first time I heard the title of this podcast, I was furious at myself for not thinking of it.
Right. Well, yeah, because once you go, because I grew up with this show. Mulder and Scully were my heroes, but then
same.
Yeah, and so I was sort of blind to it, and going through it for this show, it's kind of remarkable how insane he is.
Yeah.
Right. It's a completely new show when you watch it.
Yes.
It really is. It's so like I was like, oh, you just accept the things he does as like normal base level Mulder, but then when you just come into it knowing that he's insane, you're like, oh, he is screaming at a group of school children or whatever, and you're just like, what is happening?
Like, he's not... Yeah, I always thought of him like, he's eccentric. He's like Sherlock Holmes. And it's like, well, Sherlock Holmes is also a maniac.
Yeah.
So, guys, we're up to a very special episode. We're at Season 1, Episode 20, otherwise known as Tooms.
21, isn't it episode 21?
21,
Is it 21?
Yes.
Hold on, let me check
Yes.
Oh, it doesn't have episode things in my... I'm holding the...
I wrote it down because I own the entire series on DVD, so...
Sure.
If you want to check my work.
No, I believe you. Okay, so this is a pretty famous episode. This is the sequel to the villain Eugene Victor Tooms, who can stretch his body to fit anywhere. The first episode was Squeeze. It was, I think, the third episode of the series.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a big one.
He's a hungry Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, and this is one of the few sequel episodes to a Monster of the Week.
Like, what a sweet reoccurring guest star.
Yeah.
Like, love it.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame he gets squished in this one because it would have been fun to have him back.
Spoilers.
I know.
Yeah. He gets crushed to death.
He sure does.
And
that raises a whole lot of problems that I'm sure we're going to get to.
Well, according to the official X-Files guide, the producer, Glenn Morgan, says he was Christmas shopping in a Los Angeles mall and saw people working on an escalator. And that gave him the idea to crush a man in an escalator.
Well, do you guys remember too, like growing up, they always would instill the fear of God in you if your shoelaces were untied and you were on an escalator, that you were going to get sucked in.
Right.
So I think that too is like a lovely 90s homage.
Like that somehow the tensile strength of my shoelace would be greater than that of my leg bone.
Yeah.
I mean, I believed it at the time. I was like, holy shit. They just let people around these things?
I know. Some poor child died, and thus Velcro was born.
Right.
I hadn't looked at this beforehand. Another factoid from this episode, specific to the escalator, is guest star Doug Hutchinson, who plays Tooms. He was the one who insisted to be naked for that sequence and covered in
checks out
syrup.
for him.
Yeah, because he is kind of a creep.
He's yeah.
His like
not kind of. Really a creep.
Yeah,
His
he married a
weird-
16-year-old. Isn't that right?
Sure did, Tom.
Wait, he did?
Yeah,
He
in real
did.
life. That
In
actor.
real
Oh,
life.
wait, no, I remember that was... Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know about him, but this character definitely gave me real creepy vibes as a kid and like throughout my life, and like maybe part of it's because he's just a creepy guy.
Yeah, and his like sly smile whenever...
Yeah.
Oh.
Before we
That I'm going to marry a 16-year-old when I'm 50 smile.
Listen, it's not the first time I've seen it, okay?
the some other things about this episode that's worth mentioning is that this is Skinner's first episode.
I didn't
Skinner.
realize that.
Yeah. This is the first Skinner episode. We were talking about this in last week's episode, is that up until this point, the show doesn't quite know what, like, it knows what it wants to be, but character-wise, it hasn't nailed everything down. So Mulder keeps getting these, like, weird buddies, like, who show up, who are like, hey, how's it going? I'm Jimmy. I'm your old partner, or whatever that guy's name was. And it's these characters that like they come and go, and we're not sure if they're supposed to be regular characters.
Dave, I want you to stop and give Agent Jerry LaManna his due.
I'm
It's
sorry,
not-
Agent Jerry LaManna. See, I feel like I'm properly eulogizing him by forgetting his name,
Oh my god.
because that's how he was meant to be.
Well, the episode
remembered.
even before this one is one of my like guilty pleasure episodes because it's
So
Darkness
good.
Falls. It's like
Oh, for sure.
it's so ridiculous, but it's one of the ones that I remember the most vividly from my childhood.
Same.
As we discussed in last week's episode, one thing you notice while watching it is that it's a terrible investigation. There's like 30 missing loggers, and they're like, let's send 4 people to find out what happened.
In the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
It is.
With no backup, with no generators, like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. They don't even have bottles of water.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, they brought nothing into this.
But yeah, this one, Skinner's in it, and they act like he's always been there, which, okay, sure. Also, we get the cigarette smoking man, who was in it a few times in earlier episodes, but they didn't really have the character established. So this is kind of when we're up and running. Like, they even say in the episode, like, things are going to change from here on, like, at the very end.
Right.
So this is a big deal. Let's see. Does anybody have general observations about this episode itself? Because I have one more.
Well, my one more is it's related to... Well, why don't you say your thing first? Because it's related to your thing.
This was just... Yeah, okay. I just noticed in this episode one other thing about Tooms is that, like, his meal of choice are middle-aged bald men.
Yeah.
And I never noticed it before. Like, isn't the first victim in the first
Balding
episode...
fathers.
Yeah, like, he sees a middle-aged bald man. He's just like, oh, God, I gotta get that fucking liver. He's so into it.
I feel like the guy that wrote this episode was probably like, you know who needs to have their dues? Bald men. Right. Like, I want somebody to be hungry for us for once.
To lust for us.
Right.
One of the things I noticed in the beginning where Scully's talking to the smoking man and to Skinner is you can just see it on her face where they're like complaining about Mulder's ethics and the way he goes about investigations, and Scully just like looks like, look, it's episode 21. I know his shit's weird, but like clearly it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Right.
Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. He's not changing the way he does business anytime soon.
Yeah.
The only thing I had to point out is that his bald meal of choice in this episode is Paul Ben Victor, who we just talked about in the Briscoe County Jr. episode that we recorded.
That will come out.
That will come out, yeah.
Ooh, spoiler.
Yeah. He's also on The Wire.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we found that Briscoe County Jr.
He's a guy that plays, like, thugs almost exclusively.
Right. He's a real that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid that guy.
Okay, well, let's jump into it. Let's get to our first section. This is called World's Luckiest Detective. The idea here is we're just going to go through all the times Mulder has completely lucked into a solution, because that happens way more often than you realize. Mulder doesn't really do much investigative work. It's often other people. Like, he'll go to other people and or like the killer, like in this case, the first thing I want to point out, and this is what we talked about in the first Tooms episode, Tooms just can't help himself. So Mulder has the benefit of hunting a man who just can't stop, who kills.
Right, he's an animal, so it's like he has some sense of like, oh, I should be a little sneaky so I don't get caught, but not a lot of it.
Right. I guess, Tom, I see you have notes here about the first scene, and I was going to wait to talk about it, but do you want to talk about what Scully says to Skinner about their conviction rate?
She says that the X-File has a 75% conviction or closure rate, and that is bullshit.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's like, how many of these are like, remain unsolved? Like, every time. It's like, what?
I wrote down...
And literally at the beginning of the episode Fire, we see Mulder and Scully coming out of a hearing, and Mulder's got like a box full of all his crazy-ass X-Files, and they're talking about how it goes badly because he never gets any convictions.
Yeah, there's... She says they have a 75% conviction or case solution rate. And my guess is that she's using a very loose definition of what solution means.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe because they know the truth, but it doesn't mean that everybody believes them.
I think, and I want to get to this later, I think Scully might be like cooking the books of their like of how well they're doing. Because the first scene is basically them being like, hey, you guys suck. Scully defends them, and then they're like, and she says we have the 75% conviction or case solution, and he's like, and that's your only saving grace. That's why we're keeping you around. And it's like, oh man, if they knew that was a lie, they'd probably fire them immediately.
Almost certainly.
Oh yeah.
One of the things I had was the fact that they just stumble onto this old grisly detective who just has a hunch about everything that it proves correct.
Yes.
Like,
Right.
I've got an old-fashioned hunch.
He literally wheels over a cement area and goes, it's here. The body is right here.
They have a 90-year-old psychic in their back pocket.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he's from the first episode. He's the cop that worked on.
Yeah.
And like, it's just funny because it's even removed from Mulder, because Mulder's like, we need to do something. Scully, you go investigate stuff. I'm going to stalk this guy. Like, that's how he splits up the work. So Scully goes to the psychic old man, and they go off and like have their own little X-Files episode where she's like partnered with him.
Yeah.
And they're doing all the work. And meanwhile, Mulder's just cooking up an assault charge against him.
I also love too that the detective was like, if like later on in the episode, he's like, oh, if you don't catch him now, it'll be another 30 years and you'll be almost as old as me. And I was like, cool. Good thing Scully is literally 23 years old in this episode.
Like,
I was like, because rude, sir, rude.
He's talking about how he was a sheriff in 1933, and this episode takes place in 94. So it's like, bro, you're 90.
Yeah, it's like
in 30 years, Scully's gonna be like Brad Pitt's age.
I know.
Like,
I mean, has it been 30 years at this point? Since this episode came out? I'm not going to do the math in my head.
No, because it'll be.
Years.
I have that point later. 2024 would be 30 years later.
Okay, yeah. And Gillian Anderson is looking great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like like 49 or so. Like she's like just now turning 50.
She
like,
sure isn't 90.
She's gonna be fine. Crippled old psychic in a wheelchair.
I know.
Roller psychic, you bastard.
So, okay.
Also, I was like, you have a lot of upper arm strength for 90. Like, just rolling around like it's nobody's business.
Yeah, he's feisty.
Honestly, he looks amazing for being as old as he's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's true.
Along with them, they have that computer scientist who does all the other work.
Yeah, who comes out with two truly hilarious pieces of evidence.
Yeah, the skull comparison, which is just like...
You know what it reminded me of? That reminded me of that photo they have of the skull in his face. Reminded me of like the like glamour shots where it's like they have you like in the foreground and then like another one of you in the background. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like a JCPenney photo shoot or something. And I was
or like the old school photos.
Yes.
I don't know where that one goes. I guess it's lucky.
What?
But they don't really. They don't. It's probably the funniest piece of evidence in the X-Files since the drawing of the Jersey Devil.
Well, here's
God.
Oh God.
That episode is so bad. It's like one of the worst. It's one of the worst ones.
Oh, it boils down to just Mulder chasing a naked homeless woman. Like that's what it is.
100%.
That's it. It ends with just a homeless lady being shot in the woods.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then her children like watching
a
it happen.
homeless child starving to death in the woods. That's how it ends.
But here's the thing about the Luckiest Detective aspect. This episode, they do all this work. They have the guy looking at the bite marks. Mulder's stalking Tooms. It all comes down to Tooms just freaking out and committing a murder in his house.
Yeah.
That's it.
In his halfway house.
That's it. That's all it takes. Like, until that point, they don't really... they're not... The thing about, like, finding old evidence, and we'll obviously get to the courtroom sequence, but it's been established no one's going to believe that aspect of Tooms.
Yeah.
So it's so weird that they keep being like, no, we have to find more stuff linking him from 100 years ago. When, at one point in this episode, Tooms breaks into a house, Mulder stops him, finds his handprints, doesn't look for
I was going to say, and then ignores them. Like,
oh yeah, well that's gonna be an After Dark, right?
oh, God.
I think so. It's a little bit of
Yeah.
everything. Because
Well,
it shows, I always think with World's Luckiest Detective, it's not just that he's lucky, it's that he's a bad detective.
yes.
And that's some really bad detective work.
Right. He leaves 2 clear sets of handprints.
Yeah. And, like...
Related to that scene, it's also very lucky for Mulder that, because he falls asleep while he's following Tooms around and staking out that house, he's really lucky that Tooms fucks up trying to climb up through the toilet and has to just go out and come around and climb in the window like a normal criminal.
Yeah, also, you'd think that people in the bee house would be like, do you smell something weird?
Right, he's covered in shit. Like, also, how does he breathe down there?
I don't know.
Like that. I mean, it was a creepy ass sequence when I was a kid, and watching it as an adult, I'm just thinking like, okay, Tooms can stretch his body out, but he's in like a sewer pipe right now, and that toilet's full of water.
Oh, that's true. Like, what does he have, gills?
Yeah.
Right? Is he also a fish? What's happening
I
down
think
there?
maybe he's stretching his mouth real far to
Maybe.
like breathe.
Oh, he has like a really
it-
long straw.
Yeah. Only, but the straw is his lips.
Or
Like
maybe
Like,
That's true.
yeah,
or he stretches his lungs so its air capacity is longer.
yeah.
Oh,
something.
maybe, yeah.
Who knows what's going on in there?
Yeah, we really have no idea. Oh, God, his junk must be so freaky.
Yeah, I do love
No,
Mulder.
but like, in a way, wouldn't he be the best guy to sleep with? It's like, oh, you're too big. Hold on, I can fix that.
yeah, I can do whatever.
1 second.
I'm going to make weird grunting faces, and you're going to hear a bunch of cracking sounds while I do it, but it'll happen.
and my eyes will turn the color of puce, but don't mind that.
I can jump rope with this thing if you want to. I don't know, whatever you want.
Mulder's stakeout, by the way, I love where he says Tooms hasn't come out all day, because he also says, like, yeah, I mean, I took a walk around the block at one point, and it's like, well, how do you left, Mulder?
Yeah.
Right. Could have snuck out by then. Also, what's the one characteristic of this guy?
Yeah,
He climbs through tiny holes.
yeah. Mulder, and that's exactly what happens, because Tooms ends up in his trunk.
Yep. And he's this is the last super lucky thing that I wrote down as far as Mulder being lucky, is that it's pretty fortunate that Tooms decides to frame him instead of just eating him and going into his cocoon.
Right. Why?
Because he's
not
standing
eat
in
him?
Mulder's living room. Yeah. It's like nobody would ever know. Just kill him and go to your mall cocoon. What are you doing?
Your
Scully would
mall
know, but
Yeah, well, Scully would know, but so what?
yeah. No, you're right. All he needs is another liver. That's all he wants at that point.
If I guarantee if Mulder had been bald or had he broken into Skin Man's house, different story.
Yeah.
They should have done him going after Skinner. That would have been great.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, why does it matter if he just needs a liver? It's like, bitch, why you gotta be so picky?
Yeah.
Just pick one.
Yeah.
Like,
Also, why doesn't he just like I get the idea that he's like an animal and he's trying to stay in the same territory, but he also he tries to frame Mulder. He also understands like the law. So why not go somewhere else?
yeah.
Like, why not be like, okay, I've overstayed my welcome. There's an FBI agent
Right.
who knows exactly what I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could pack up from Baltimore and go to like Philadelphia
Yeah.
or something.
I mean, yes, Mulder will follow him for a while, but eventually we'll have to be called back.
No, yeah, he'll see a UFO and get distracted. Like
Yeah.
he'll get distracted by some other boggins,
Yeah, and so
and that'll be it.
It really comes down to Tooms just really fucking up. Like, he does a bad job at being a mutant monster in this.
I mean, yeah. It's.
Yeah.
Yeah, like most of what like most of the reasons why this case is solved without like Mulder being eaten or imprisoned is because Tooms is like 70 to 80% just an animal.
Yeah.
And he just can't help himself.
Yeah.
Although he does have the wherewithal to frame Mulder too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's like you have
he understands complex ideas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then his bald bloodlust, his bald thirst takes over, and he can't. It all goes out the way. He gets blood simple, as they say.
Mm. Yeah, he wrecks that bald guy in his own room.
Oh my god!
Just wrecks him. All right. Is there anything else about World's Luckiest Detective?
I think that's it.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, not really. I just had the note that it seems unlikely they would release Tooms for in less than a year for attacking an FBI agent in her home.
Also, what I noticed too with that was that he literally. Because at first when I was watching it, I was like, "Wow, Mulder's wearing a very loud tie," and then literally later on, when he's out collecting animals, you see Mulder stop him and he's like, "Oh, there's a dog, my dog I'm looking for," whatever. He's wearing the same tie, which implies that it's the same day. I was like, this motherfucker is already back on the job the same day that he gets released from court. I was like, what?
Right. They must have really needed a guy.
Yeah, they're really short in the animal control department in Baltimore.
Oh my god.
There's another solution to that. Which
the wardrobe department was lazy.
Well, I want to get into it actually. With all right, let's move on into Mulder After Dark. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's smooth.
Let it dance right into your ears.
Yeah. It's like a fine scotch in your ears.
I've only been told that this is where a saxophone solo is, so I'm not gonna believe you.
Oh, you'll believe.
Yeah, you're really gonna appreciate all this later when you listen to the episode. You're like, oh man, those guys were right.
Yep.
It's really good.
So, well, about the time, because all right, Baltimore's about an hour away from Washington, and Mulder spends a good amount of this episode stalking Tooms. And like you said, he has the same tie.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance that Mulder just didn't leave his car for this episode. Nope. At one point, Scully says, "You've been up for 3 days."
Yeah, that's true. You smell ripe.
Yeah, like I think he might have just followed Tooms out of court and just immediately started following him.
He's wearing the same clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it could be the same day, you're right. But also, it's Mulder. And who can really say? We should probably talk about the courtroom scene.
Oh, God, it's so funny.
Yeah.
We must talk about the courtroom scene.
So, we talk a lot about Mulder's slideshows. And that's the first thing that happened.
I literally started screaming. I was like, are you fucking kidding me already with the slideshow?
It's great because
he loves his slideshows so much.
Oh my God.
He didn't tell anybody. He got on the witness stand and he like took out a projector and they're like, "Sir, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I need to set up. Give me a second." Like there's got to be a setting up period. We've talked about this, I think, in the previous Tooms episode. One of Mulder's biggest problems, especially with Tooms, is he refuses to settle, meaning that he has to convince everyone that Tooms is an immortal mutant who eats livers. Otherwise, Tooms goes free.
Yeah,
because like in the first episode, in Squeeze, he finds those stretchy fingerprints and they match Tooms, and all he has to do is say that. Like that's all he has to do is be like, "Look, the fingerprints match." And if someone's like they're stretchy, he'd be like, "Well, they're smudged." Like or whatever, like it. Yeah. I don't know, but he has to convince people, and this is another case. As he goes into court, and he screams that Tooms is a mutant, and basically his testimony is completely like disregarded.
Right, he so torpedoes this case.
It's to the point where he's like, this one woman, like one of the judges asks a question, he just immediately starts screaming at her. And I'm just like,
He starts screaming that he's a what does he say? A mutant?
Yeah.
That needs to be studied. No, he says he's a rare creature.
Yes, he refers to him as a creature.
Studied.
Here's a good tip. If you're trying to keep someone in jail, don't refer to them as a creature in court. People won't believe anything you say. Even if he's a creature. Like, he has that thing where he's like, it's the like, well, technically I'm right. And it's like, doesn't matter, Mulder. Like, you have no evidence of this.
He literally screams out, I contend that he's capable of genetic mutation. And you're
right.
And then I love the fact that they cut to Scully's reaction where she's just like, God damn it.
Right.
Like,
she's so fed up with his shit.
yeah.
You know, I suspect that Mulder was a witness for the defense. I'm pretty sure the defense subpoenaed.
They heard him speaking. They're like, oh yeah, put him up.
Oh, we gotta get this guy up there.
When Scully afterwards is like, you blew it, Mulder, she's like, do you know how that sounded? And he says, I don't care how it sounded as long as it was the truth. And it's like,
Yep.
But he's getting out because of you.
Yeah.
Like, don't you care about that? Don't you care more about the fact that he's going to kill more people? And he does?
Yeah, it's the same thing we talked about in Squeeze. Like, that one line like describes his entire mentality for this episode. It's the important thing to him is not catching the murderer. It's that everyone believes him that Tooms is a mutant. Like, that's what's important to him.
Oh yeah. And if that takes Tooms killing somebody in the middle of the street, Mulder will love it. He'll be all over that.
Poor Mulder. He just wants to say I was right and have somebody believe him.
Yeah.
Like, that's all he wants.
He wants somebody to validate his bullshit. That's it.
That, and he wants to fight an alien.
Yes.
And he wants to fight an alien.
Yeah, we came to this conclusion because previous episodes when he faces aliens, he's like kind of angry at them.
Yeah.
And he will, if he gets the opportunity, if he thinks there's an alien, he'll run towards where it is. Mm-hmm. And we're pretty sure he just wants to beat it and be like, where's my sister?
Yeah.
Like, I think he thinks of them as just like criminals.
Yeah.
like an organized crime family. That's how he regards aliens.
Yeah.
He's like racist against aliens.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I don't care if you were like, I don't care if you were the one that took her or not. I'm gonna beat the living piss out of you. Like,
yeah, he would bludgeon E.T. with a lead sock. Like, he doesn't give a shit. He's like, where's my sister? That's what happened. That's why they find E.T. like all white in a ditch. Is because Mulder beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, Mulder found him
and kicked him out of a van.
So Mulder decides to investigate Tooms, and he does this by having Scully actually investigate Tooms. And then he just sits in his car and follows Tooms around.
Well, there's one other thing I wanted to point out about the court scene.
Oh, okay.
Is that they mention that Tooms has never been charged with any of the killings, nor has any evidence linked him to any other crimes. So all that evidence that Mulder collected in the previous, in part one of this, he just sat on it.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's true. I think he screamed he's a mutant. And look at these stretchy fingerprints, and nobody believed him, and no one bothered. Like, that's what, again, I've never seen Mulder just say, look, the fingerprints match. Like, I feel like that's all it would take, right? Like, just saying, look, his fingerprints match the fingerprints of the killer. We don't even have to go back to the 1920s. Just the murders from the first episode. Like, look, the fingerprints match. But he doesn't do that.
he like won't do it.
Yeah.
No, he won't. Yes.
It's not hard. And then, like, like, he said that the lawyer stopped genetic tests and whatever. Like, I feel like the lawyer wouldn't know to stop
With
that.
good reason.
Yeah, the lawyer wouldn't know to stop that.
No lawyer is going to allow you to. Oh my god!
Especially since, again, he's only been charged with assaulting Scully, which means that's literally the only thing they could get him on because, again, Mulder refused
Also,
to
that's
compromise.
the assault of an FBI agent. You'd think that maybe they'd, take it more seriously.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Oh my god.
So yeah, he sits in his car, listens to radio, pees in bottles, I assume.
Oh, for sure.
Peas in bottles.
Yeah.
This is like Mulder's I Saw the Devil.
Yeah.
He's just following Tooms around.
Yeah.
And I love that Mulder basically just gaslights Scully into working on cases from 30 and 60 years ago. Like, he even says, like, he's just like, like, we've already been reeled in and skinned. And it's like, oh, okay. She's like,
all right, man.
Like, oh my God.
I always thought that was because I feel like Scully wouldn't need too much reason because he did attack her at one point. So you'd think she'd be kind of pissed at Tooms.
Right. Yeah, like she kind of doesn't show much.
Well, she also understands common sense.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, don't stalk him. Like, just don't scream at in court that he's a creature. The point is to put this man in jail, not to prove that he's a mutant. But Mulder won't have it.
No.
Big puzzle piece in this episode. Scully says that Mulder hasn't slept in 3 days, and she's trying to get him to leave his watch of stalking Tooms. And she calls him Fox, and he laughs and says, "Oh, I even made my parents call me Mulder."
Oh my God, I loved that so much. I was just like, what a fucking maniac.
Yes. Well,
I'm picturing like every birthday and Christmas where he eats like opening presents that just say to Mulder.
Yeah. Because it's their shared last name. It's an insane thing to insist.
Right?
We pointed out in previous episodes, it's when he meets Scully, he just immediately calls her Scully. So it's nobody else is calling her that. So it's that he's like, you must call me by my last name, but also I'm going to call everybody by their last names as well.
Yeah.
It's cool code names.
Yeah, it is cool code names. He's he's a child.
Yeah, he's a little boy. We've said it. We say it a lot on this show, but a lot of what Mulder does makes total sense if you just think of him as a little boy.
He looks like a little boy.
I love too when Scully finds the evidence with the skull comparison that suddenly Mulder is like, this will never work. And it's like, oh, now you're going to dismiss crazy? Like, if you didn't bring crazy to the table, then it's inauthentic. Like, what is happening?
This will never work, says the man who has fingerprints.
And that just completely disregarded them. Like, it's so insane.
He goes in that family's house and he's like, I think you have an intruder. They find the fucking the shitty fingerprints, and then they just cut away from that scene, and it's never mentioned again.
Also, I love that bald man had like a child bride too, because that chick that played the wife was super young as well, and I was like, what the fuck?
She was like super young, and they had an infant.
Yeah, that family is. I don't know what's going on in there.
This is some real bald wish fulfillment by whoever wrote this episode.
I know. I'm just
coming down hard on bald people. I'm sorry.
He's just like, everybody wants a piece of this bald action. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And like, he would have to fill out a report for that, right? Like, you can't just, he walks into a house in the middle of the night. He's like, I'm with the FBI and there's somebody in your house, and, goes to their house, finds like physical evidence that there was a person in their house, and we never follow up on it. So you'd think like they would probably call and follow up and be like, so this guy was here.
Yeah. They want to make sure he was in fact an FBI agent.
Right. That would be the first thing I would think of.
Yeah.
I don't think that guy was an FBI agent.
Yeah, and also like maybe call a plumber too. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Something's going on down there.
Right. Yeah, like it's like the toilet starts yanking the snake back, and she's just like, "Oh, that's weird."
I was watching the episode with Jeff last night, and I was like, "Oh, like anybody just owns a fucking snake," and he was like. He's like, well, if you're a homeowner, and I was like, ooh, sorry, some of us have owned homes. I get it.
I don't know. I thought a snake was like a '90s thing. Like,
Is it?
I've never seen one in my life.
I mean, in my apartment building, if the plumber comes, he'll snake the drain. He'll have one, but I've never like owned my own snake.
Neither have I. No, I'm not some fancy snake holder.
Yeah, we're not in that income tax bracket where we can just go out and buy snakes willy-nilly.
Jeff just gave a thumbs up. He's in the room with us right now.
Yeah, ignoring us.
I'm trying to not.
He's trying not to interrupt. I'm the one who's brought him into this. So Mulder goes home, and to wind down, he watches The Fly and falls asleep in his clothes on his couch with no blankets.
Because he doesn't have a bed.
Yes. He doesn't have a bed.
I also love that he completely sleeps through the woman's screams during the movie The Fly, but then he wakes up when he hears a screw being unscrewed. Right. Like, what?
He's attuned to certain sounds. He has long ago learned to block out the sounds of women screaming.
Oh my God.
Oh, Mulder.
Also in that scene too, I noticed that there was a can of Pepsi on his coffee table, and I was like, of course Mulder drinks Pepsi. Ugh.
It was a can of Pepsi that said cola on it, and it was upside down.
Mulder,
I'm so glad you're also psycho enough to have noticed that.
Mulder, you fucking maniac.
Yeah.
There's probably some weird superstition that he drinks all of his sodas upside down.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
His apartment is always like it's a very adult apartment, sort of. It's a serial killer's apartment where
Right,
you
it has
walk
nothing
in
in it.
Yeah, well, it all looks kind of normal, but like you notice, like the photos are very generic on the wall.
Yeah.
He'll have like old pictures of like black and white pictures of old buildings or landscapes. His desk will be neat. He'll have like a candle and like a fancy clock or something like that. And then it's revealed in way later that like he doesn't have a bedroom. And his bedroom is packed with old boxes is what the reveal comes in like season 5. So it really is like there's dead cats in that room. Like he's really good at hiding how insane he is. Because it really, if you're like a pizza guy, you glance in that room, you're like, oh, it's fine. But then if you were in there for like an hour, you'd notice everything was a little off, you know?
Yeah, like if you're a pizza guy, you might get murdered for thinking that you're a vampire. I mean, I don't know. Sorry, season 5 reference.
That does happen.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into the murders that Mulder commits.
That's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great one. I feel like if you walked into Mulder's apartment, you'd slowly realize like the geometry was all wrong or something.
Right. It's like the hotel from The Shining.
Yeah.
There's like doors that don't go anywhere and like
Right.
It's like
This
feng
apartment
shui.
shouldn't exist.
I have one final thing for this section, which is simply that when they find Tooms' nest, Mulder climbs down there and sticks his face right into it.
Right.
And it's
some
like,
crocodile
Mulder,
hunter bullshit.
you know what's in there, right? Like,
Yeah. No.
you know what's going to come out of there.
No, thank you.
Yep.
He's got the FBI regulations memorized.
Of course.
Which I get.
He has everything memorized.
Right. Like they reveal in a couple of episodes that Mulder's really into numbers. Like he has a lot of sports statistics memorized and things like that.
Right. And he knows, as we found out in the previous episode, he knows a lot about radioactive bugs.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
He whips out that information about brain-sucking amoebas in Mount St. Helens. Because why wouldn't he know that?
He's just got that in his holster.
Yep.
Also, this doesn't really fit with Mulder After Dark. It's more Eugene Victor Tooms After Dark.
Sure.
He was really rolling the dice on how popular malls would remain.
Oh my God, you're right. Is that if they didn't catch him? Oh,
that shit would have been torn down around him.
Yeah.
Like they would have found this weird naked guy in a pile of newspapers.
Like, this will be around forever. I have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
This will stand until 2024.
Yeah. Well, I can see that seeming like a safe assumption in the 90s.
We were tearing down the old Gloria jeans, and look what we found.
Tooms didn't know about Amazon yet. Like, if someone had told him about Amazon, he'd be like, oh, yeah, no, definitely not going to do them all. But
guess I should find a cave or something.
Yeah. He should have found a cave a long time ago.
Right. Like, don't build your nest beneath the Sam Goody, sir.
Yeah.
I was in a mall when I went home a couple weeks ago, and it's crazy how deserted they are now. Like a lot of the even like pull down gates were closed on a lot of the stores in like the middle of the day.
Well, this is a whole other podcast, but they're either become real bummers, or I noticed last time I went to a mall that's all like escape rooms and bowling alleys and arcades, because they realize like that's the only thing that you can't like quite get online anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's instead of shopping, it's like we're gonna get a bunch of actors to pretend that you're in a dungeon for some reason, and it works.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's an experience you have to leave the house for.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So do we got? What do we? Is that it for Mulder After Dark? Do we feel good about this?
The only thing that I wrote down that I thought was just funny was when they're in the car and Scully says that it smells in there. He pulls out a air freshener and he's like, pine.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you literally just came from the woods. Do you really want a pine scented air
You're
freshener?
Right.
Like,
so, Scully like clenched her fists a little bit when he did that. I've been waiting for Scully to just punch Mulder at some point.
I know.
Just punch him right in the fucking neck. She puts up with so much. Okay.
She really does.
I guess let's move on to the fireable offenses then.
Yeah.
So, biggie. There's a biggie in this episode.
Oh, the illegitimate surveillance, or
And,
that's a pretty huge one.
I think that is the spice on the assault charges. Because Mulder is charged for assault and it never gets resolved. In fact, a man goes into a police station, not the FBI, says Mulder assaulted him. He's all fucked up. The cops arrest Mulder. And then like a couple days later, that man is found crushed in an escalator by Mulder.
yeah.
And that means the FBI would have had to like cover that up. Because otherwise Mulder's going to jail, right?
Yeah. We were literally like, hey, remember that guy who got accused of assaulting? I killed him.
Yeah. He's dead. And it's like, yeah, he also committed a murder, but you can't link like that murder and Mulder trying to stop him. Like, what are they going to tell anybody about what happened?
I don't know.
They're like, yeah, we found him in this old abandoned mall. We found him in the closed mall, and then he crushed himself in the escalator.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that. He was like, "You'll never take me alive, coppers,"
Yeah.
and he crushed himself. Can you imagine, like, just writing that report? It's like, oh, okay, so it's like, well, the suspect was, we killed him. It's like, oh, so you killed him trying to apprehend him. Oh no, I crushed him to death in an escalator. It's like,
After following him for days.
yeah.
Just really wanted to make sure he was dead. Like,
Yeah.
I mangled him in a movable staircase.
Yeah, he it's
Can
really,
you walk me through that chain of events?
it's a real like damning look on how our government works, where Mulder is charged with assault, doesn't get fired, and because Skinner's like, your friends on Capitol Hill barely saved you from this one or something.
oh
like
yeah,
that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I was like, what friends on Capitol Hill?
They introduced a senator later. In I think the episode Little Green Men. But
it's the season 2 premiere. Yeah.
Yeah, until this point, there's like,
It's Deep Throat, and that's pretty much it.
yeah.
Like, we don't know that he has any friends on Capitol.
or at all, because literally,
yeah, no.
they're always like, oh, everybody in the academy called him spooky. So it's like, what friends? Like, what?
Are you implying maybe that he just has told people this?
Yeah.
Like, this is like his Canadian girlfriend, where he's like, I have some very powerful friends.
Yeah, I think that's honestly what happened. Like, there's no way. Like,
God damn, that might be true.
It's almost certainly true.
Yeah, I mean, and again, at least until Little Green Men. But who knows when he actually met that guy. Yeah, like, this is one big fireable offense, this episode. Also, when they killed Tooms, like, what do you think they did? Did they just leave the mall? Did they just let the janitor find that?
Yeah, I would have.
That's the only thing I can think of is why the cops aren't after Mulder, is they were just like, beat it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's get the hell out of here.
And then they just reported it to the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they should be fired a lot in this one.
100%.
Yeah.
Lots of firings.
Yeah. Is there any other specifics?
Think so.
No, just that main one, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I think the illegitimate surveillance and then the main one of, killing a man.
Right.
Yeah, killing a man you've been stalking for days.
And oh my god. It's gonna be like, okay, he ran from us, so we killed him. And the cops are gonna have to be like, so why is he naked? It's like, it's for his cocoon. His what? Like, there's no way they're getting out of this.
Yeah.
And then I love the scene where Skinner's reading the report, and he looks at the cigarette smoking man. He's like, do you believe
them?
And he goes, of course I do.
I know.
It's like, really? You believe that they threw a naked, or the naked man found in the escalator was going after them?
Mm-hmm.
I love that too. That bit where like the his lawyer or his case handler or whatever comes to the house and he's like, "Oh, I see you're tearing newspaper. I didn't know you were into paper mache."
He goes, I like art.
And no, sir, something far more sinister.
Yeah.
I also love too that the couple that took him in was like, "Oh, our bedroom's really tiny, but we bet you can squeeze in." And I was like,
yeah.
"Wow, we get it, Chris Carter. We get it."
I said that thing that guy does. I see what you're doing. That was for us. That was for the true fans.
That's true.
Man, someone we've mentioned this before. If someone got a hold of this case in the press, like this would be a scandal. Because now that I think about it,
this is one of many episodes of the X-Files that would be a scandal.
Yeah, because it's just Mulder saying like, "Oh, he killed that man," like he killed the case worker. Like for all they know, Mulder, who freaked out in court, murdered the lawyer guy, dragged Tooms out of his house, stripped him naked, and threw him in an escalator. Like that's more plausible.
Just dragging him through the mall and throws him into the escalator.
Yeah. Was there any sign of break-in at the mall? No, he politely asks mall security to let him in with a naked man.
Yeah.
Just dragging him through.
All right, I guess
Mulder.
I guess we're ready for Name the Enabler then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, this is where we just go through the episode and figure out who exactly is the main enabler for Mulder. It's surprisingly it's not Scully a lot. And now that Skinner's here, we're getting our king enabler.
Right. He's Papa Enabler.
Yes. He is.
He's Mulder's dad for all intents and purposes.
They seem Skinner and the Smoking Man, they seem so determined to have Mulder fired. But it's clearly not the case. Mm-hmm. Because in this one, Mulder is charged with assault and isn't fired. They just go, all right, this is your last chance. So yeah, they enabled the shit out of him in this. They
really do.
Right. They just kind of, Mulder says, "I guarantee if you run a test, you'll see that my foot wasn't inside the shoe at the time of the assault." And they're just like, "Well, all right, that seems reasonable. You can go right on back out there and keep enforcing the law." Yeah,
and then they just say, "You're not allowed near Eugene Tooms." And
I mean, you sort of weren't allowed near him to begin with.
Right.
You can't just follow a guy.
Right. Right, and he's not, again, okay, this is another thing, and this might go in fireable offenses. There's no crime in this episode. They're not investigating anything. It is just Mulder harassing a man. Mm-hmm. He just gets out, like there's no case. When they bring him into that office and they're like, "You've been charged with assault," they should also be like, "And what are you doing? Like, why are you investigating him?
Also, what have you been up to?"
Yeah, why? Yeah, where have you been?
Also, has anyone told the lawyer's family about what happened to him yet?
Yeah.
I wonder if that absolves him, though, because he did kill him in the home that he was staying in. Then it's kind of like, okay, well, there's your proof.
Right, but no one witnesses that. That's like Mulder.
I mean, later, though, because I think the timeline's so close together.
Yeah.
Because he kills that guy and then takes off.
Right. I mean, at any point, Mulder can just show people the fingerprints. Right,
and they got the teeth marks on the old skeleton.
Right. Which I don't think that's going to hold up in court. I don't think it matters anymore because they grinded him in an escalator.
Yeah,
right. He's all flat now.
But it would matter. Here's the thing. It would matter in the assault charges because even if, like, they're going to be like, "You assaulted this man," and Mulder's going to be like, "He was a murderer," and they're like, "Okay, you still assaulted this man." Like, like even if they're like, "Okay, so he was sleeping in the escalator," you still went in there, just you and Scully, and you dug him out and grinded him in the escalator. And I guess it's sort of their word against, dead Eugene at that point, and I'm sure they'll go with it. But again, like, if the press got a hold of this case, they'd be like, "There's a lot of questionable shit going on."
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like we talked about this in other episodes, is Mulder is kind of part of the cover-up side of things. Like he talks about the truth so much, but like they're going to have to cover all of this up. Like Skinner, Cigarette Smoking Man, the FBI, they're not going to want anybody to know that this happened, which is going to be hard because people have died. Like this has made the newspapers. So like they're just not going to want to have to explain any of this. So there's so much enabling going on just in the sense that they're protecting Mulder.
It's a lot of grenades to jump on for old Skin Man.
Yeah.
I know. He's got his work cut out for him for his first episode.
And for pretty much the rest of the series too, he's going to be doing a lot of gymnastics to try to keep Mulder out of prison.
Yeah. And but here's the thing. He had an out-of-body experience in Nam, and therefore believes everything Mulder says. That's what we learned.
I forgot about that.
Oh, man.
Yep. That's the episode where he kills a sex worker.
Where Skinner. He kills a prostitute.
The 90s.
Yeah. That's a hell of an episode. Okay.
It's a real curveball.
Are we ready for Crazy Like a Fox?
I think we are.
Yeah.
All right. This is where we put a numerical value on just how crazy Mulder is, from between 1 and 10.
Mm-hmm. 1 being crushing 0 people in an escalator, and 10 being crushing several people in an escalator.
What are you guys thinking?
I say low. I mean, this was, I think, some of the least crazy shit I've seen him do. In the grand scheme of things, you know.
Yeah, he's kind of, in terms of what he actually does, it's kind of normal.
Yes.
Or at least more subdued. It's really just the courtroom scene where he loses his mind.
This is the same. The original episode Squeeze, we gave him a low number too, because he doesn't need to be crazy, because he's in the best fucking world. It's a mutant monster. Like, he doesn't even have to prove it to anybody. Well, at least not to Scully. Like, Scully is like, yep, mutant monster, we gotta get him. And so he's kind of in heaven here. It's more about just how fired he should be.
Yeah.
It's more about the assaults.
How unemployed he should be.
Yeah. I was giving this like a 4.
I agree, actually. That's the number I came up with, too.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah.
A 4 all around?
I'll throw my lot in with a 4.
Wow, we don't have to fight for it?
No. We've had a few little fights over stuff, but it's pretty, as we went, like, because we didn't want to give high numbers right away, you know.
Sure.
If we were like never had seen this show before, I bet the numbers would be skewed at first, but we know what's coming.
It's like it's like at the Moth when people don't quite know how to score yet.
Yeah.
And now it's like, we figured out our system.
Yeah, exactly. We the last episode was very interesting, Darkness Falls, because we give him a 6 only because of one scene. There's just one
Which one?
Scene. He catches the eco-terrorist fixing a car, and the guy's at the hood of the car. He's not hurting anybody. His back is turned, and Mulder points his gun point blank at him and goes, like, go in somewhere. And it's like, you have drawn your weapon and pointed it at a man.
And then he lets him go with the Jeep and all their supplies, thus dooming them to die, which they do. They die.
Insane.
Yeah.
They get cocooned by insects.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. I think that's an episode.
Yeah, I think that's a sode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it.
That's a sode.
It's a sode, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Killer sode.
Killer sode.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me.
You're our first guest ever for Fox Mulder is a Maniac.
I feel very honored.
Yeah, you should be. We're honored to have you.
We've never done this before.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Where can we find you? You got stuff to plug?
Oh, sure. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Valerie_Tosi, TOS as in Sam I. Ironically, this week is the year anniversary of me shooting an episode of Stand Against Evil where I got to play a knockoff Scully, so that's fun.
It's amazing.
That's on Hulu, so if you check out Stand Against Evil Season 3, Episode 2 with the Hex Files, you can catch me playing Imitation Scully, which is pretty fun. And I run an all-female stand-up show at the Hollywood Improv that's monthly, called the Mermaid Comedy Hour. It's the second Monday of the month, so if you're in LA, come check it out.
Cool.
Do
Yeah.
all those things.
Do all of those things. You mooks.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, what do we got going on?
Well, as I mentioned, this is a free episode. This is normally exclusive to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We have another exclusive show called Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, which is delightful. It's fucking great.
It is.
Yeah. So yeah, check us out on there.
I mean, you guys are great.
Aw. Oh, jeez. Thank you. We're trying.
We're doing our best.
Yeah. Also, if you like this show, there's merch for it on tpublic.com/stores/gamefullyunemployed.
Oh my god, I just saw the Fox Mulder's Maniac poster, and I can't order one soon enough.
Yeah. It is. That was
great.
made by Starlene Hodge, who does the art for this podcast.
It's so great.
Yeah,
thanks.
It's Always Sunny
pretty...
Charlie conspiracy board, but with Mulder.
I love that Starge wound up drawing 4 different logo possibilities for us have just various degrees of Mulder crazy eyes, so we wound up just using all of them and we alternate in case you guys haven't noticed yet.
Yeah, the pattern, there is no pattern. I just pick whatever. I whenever I like upload the logo, I'm like, I don't know, I don't think we've used that one in a while.
Right.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah,
it's pretty excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's
good. Everybody enjoy your Sunday.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Artwork for Fox Mulder's A Maniac is produced by Starlene Hodge. Follow her on Twitter at StarleneX, that's Starlene with an X, or check out her delightful webcomic at rubywhipple.com.